Hi guys, I'm Ivory and welcome to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing a 3-day wear test on the McGrath Skin Fetish Sublime Perfection Foundation. I'm going to be showing you how it applies initially as well as checking in throughout the day to show you how it wears. For anyone that's new here, I have oily and acne prone skin, so my wear tests are catered towards people with similar skin types. If you find that this review is helpful, I will link up here a playlist of all the other foundations that I have tried. And before we get started, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I post new videos every single week, and also be sure to follow me on my social media. Everything is _ivorycherry. Okay, so before I get started, I want to break down each of the days because they are different each day. So I want to explain it to anyone that's new here. If you don't care and you already are kind of familiar with it, then I will put a timestamp somewhere on the screen so you could skip to the first day, which is today. So on the first day, half my face has primer and then the other side has nothing except moisturizer underneath. I moisturize my entire face, but basically half my face has primer, half of it doesn't have primer. And in addition to that, I applied the foundation half of my face using a brush and then the other half of my face using a microfiber sponge. And then depending on the results of today, I will take that information and apply it to day 2. And then on day 2, I will also be adding loose powder under my foundation. Adding loose powder underneath foundation helps prolong oils from coming through, but I've also noticed that it can help keep foundation together. Sometimes foundation starts to crack right here on my chin area, as well as my T-zone or my nose. But when I put powder underneath, depending on the foundation, it can keep it together way better than if there was nothing underneath. And then depending on what happens on day 1 and day 2, I will take that information into day 3. And then on the last day, I'm going to be showing you what the foundation looks like in natural lighting and not studio lights. And really, that's just a day to solidify my opinions about the foundation. Sometimes the first 2 days, I'm still gathering my thoughts. With the third day, I'll have a clear answer of whether or not the foundation is good or not. To save you a little bit of time, as always, I will put timestamps of each of the days in my description box below, so feel free to skip around. I really don't mind. And that is it. Let's move on. So for anyone that is not familiar with this foundation, this is what it looks like. It's very heavy. It has a cap and a pump, which is nice. Personally, for me, I'm not a huge fan of frosted glass just because I feel like it's harder to match my foundation in stores, especially if they don't let you pump it on your hand and like swatch. So that's my one issue with this. Like I said, half of my face, I used a primer. I used the L'Oreal Infallible Matte Lock Primer. I really like this one, and I initially applied it to the areas where I get oily first, which is my chin, my nose, and my forehead, and then afterwards with the remaining product I just spread it outwards to the rest of my face. And then on this side of my face, I used a brush to apply the foundation.